My name is Brett Rogers. I'm the VP of Recruiting here at HR Covered, and today I'm giving a webinar on ROI Recruiting, which stands for Return on Investment, if you didn't know what that was. We're going to be talking about hiring A players. We're going to build up a case, explaining what that is and why that's important. I'm going to talk about our story at HR Covered, why hiring is so difficult right now, grading talent, the difference between an A, B, and C player, and then, of course, how we recruit here at HR Covered, followed by Q&A. We are a full-service HR company. We're based in London, Ontario. However, we are fully remote. Everyone that works for us can work wherever they want. We were established just over 2 years ago, and we have 100 employees and counting. Here is something I always like to go to right away. This is a picture of our bank statement. Almost exactly 2 years ago, a month into business, you can see $1,500 in the bank account. I always like to joke, you're probably wondering, why am I talking about recruiting? We barely had enough money to make it into December. And that's exactly why I'm here to talk about recruiting today, because we use recruiting to really drive our business and drive our business growth more specifically. So day one, November 1st, 2020, just over 2 years ago, zero money in the bank account. By the end of 2021, we finished with 1.5 million in sales. We hit 800 clients this past summer, and we're projected to finish this year with about 8 million in sales. So how did we do it? How did we go from zero to where we are now and growing? We did it through recruiting. So we use recruiting as a way to scale our business to drive the highest return on investment possible. We knew the positions we needed to hire to make ourselves very competitive in the marketplace. And we went out there and found that talent, hired them, and that's how we really grew our business. Here's a quote from Matt Telford, our CEO. Recruiting is not just about filling vacant positions. It's about hiring A players who will drive your organization's ROI. Before I get into that, let's talk about why is it so difficult to hire these days? Because it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It could be not-for-profit, it could be government, private sector, in tech, agriculture, doesn't matter. Big business, small business, everyone is having a hard time hiring. And why is that? It's obviously a complicated issue, but I'm going to break it down to three key things we're going to talk about today. Global community, the Great Resignation, and 5 key hiring mistakes that we see being made all the time. In the old days, as in 5 years ago, a couple years before COVID, geography and technology were these two different elements. So if you were hiring for someone in London, Ontario, where we're based, you would put up a job ad, and most likely you were going to fill that position from someone in the greater London area. What happened with COVID is that it forced technology to really, become more adaptive in how business operates, because people were told, hey, you can't come to work right now. You have to work remote. So everyone had to kind of learn on the go and learn really quick. So what's happened now is that same position that, you used to would hire, like in London, Ontario, you would hire someone there. Now that position can really be filled by anyone, anywhere. So if the jobs were remote, you could hire someone in Vancouver or in Halifax or in the United States, or even in the Philippines or in India or Europe, like depending on what the job was. So what happened is technology has now overpowered geography. The other is the Great Resignation. This is a term that everyone's heard of. This came about during COVID, and it was a term used to describe why were so many people quitting their jobs. Here's a survey by Randstad in 2021. 53% of Canadian organizations reported employee turnover at an all-time high. No surprise, because 40% of Canadians said that they were open to exploring new opportunities. That doesn't mean that they were going to leave their job. In doing recruiting, a big part of that is doing headhunting, right? Or poaching. So if I contact someone and it's the right profile and I have a job that is in the right mix, there's a 40% chance that I'm going to engage in a conversation with that prospect. Are they really happy with their job? What are they looking for? What's their career goals? So the Great Resignation is really, it's really brought to light that people are open to leaving. And why is that? So there's really 6 key factors that has fueled the Great Resignation, which you could argue is still happening right now. And none of this is rocket science. You have burnout, poor culture, no flexibility, lack of meaning, no prospect to grow, and compensation. I just wanted to say that we often think people leave their job because of money, for sure. Like that's a big reason. But there's these other factors as well. And often it's 2 or 3 different things at play that drive someone to leave their job to go take on a new one. Now, in terms of the mistakes that we see companies make, here are the 5 things that we see all the time that fuels, again, making hiring so difficult. So number 1, you don't have a recruiting plan. Number 2, you underestimate compensation. Number 3, you're not flexible in your approach. Number 4, you undersell your offering. And 5, you don't act with urgency. So I always like to say, you got to think like a military operation, okay? Or think like you're going into the championship game of any sport. It could be, you know, the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup, the World Series. If you don't have a plan, you're going to get crushed, right? And yet we see this all the time in business. Businesses do not have recruiting plans, right? And we often think of recruiting as a reactive measure, okay? So someone has a job, they quit, and now I'm in a rush to replace them, okay? That's what I call reactive hiring or reactive recruiting. But really, we should be looking at recruiting from a proactive lens. And that's exactly what we did at our company, right? We had a plan to scale. So if your business has like a long-term vision that, hey, every quarter, we're going to be growing, we're going to continue to grow, then you need a recruiting plan to reflect that. Because if you don't, you're going to be playing catch up all the time. At the same time, you're also going to have people who just quit. It's going to happen, right? Like someone's going to say, hey, I'm got another job, or I'm moving away, whatever the reason is. So you need to have a plan in place to react properly. So those are the 2 big things. I will say that from all the clients that we've had for recruiting, we've only had 1 client that actually had a recruiting plan in place. Really, no one has a recruiting plan, and it's the easiest thing to do. And it's something that everyone should do. If you're using a recruiter or if you're doing hiring on your own, you need a recruiting plan. Number 2, you underestimate compensation, okay? So this one, really important. So we always, when we do an onboarding call with a client, we do a salary analysis. Just because you paid someone this amount of money for the last 5 years to do a job doesn't mean that that's what the market is paying today. It is changing all the time. So we do a salary analysis to understand, okay, you want to pay the person this amount of money. Where is that in terms of the marketplace for a hybrid job, a remote job, you know, compared to the Canadian average or compared to Toronto, depending on where that job is. So you need to do a salary analysis to understand where you're at. If you're at the top of that, then obviously the other things like, yes, vacation, benefits, bonuses, those things are all really important. But if you're right in the middle or you're below what the market's offering, you really need to have the best compensation package possible, okay? So the best vacation possible. You know, maybe it's something where it's like, hey, I got a couple weeks vacation and we're going to work in some extra long weekends throughout the year as a way to kind of sweeten the pot a bit. Benefits, right? Health and dental. Is it going to be fully paid? Is it 50% pay? Is it a really good plan? Is it an okay plan? And of course, bonuses, signing bonuses, variable bonuses, right? There's all sorts of different ways that we can help shift the job to make it more attractive by having the best compensation available. Number 3, you're not flexible in your approach, okay? This is a really big one. Not all jobs can be hybrid or remote, right? Like we know that. But where flexibility can be built in, build it in. It's so important, right? It shows to the prospect that, you know, you're doing everything that you can to make this job work for them. And that really does matter. When we go back to the 6 reasons why people leave their jobs in the Great Resignation, right? People want to feel like they have a voice and that they're valued. Making a job flexible is important. So flex time, as an example, a lot of people have children, right? So it's like, hey, if you want to start a little earlier, start a little later, as long as you get the job done, for the most part, that's great. I will say, I just want to give you a quick story. I was recruiting for a tech company in Ottawa, and it was a controller position, really awesome company, doing really well. And the CFO was like, hey, we want to hire someone. I'm like, okay, no problem. At first, the job was going to be in office. And then they came back and said, you know what, we want to make this hybrid. We want to make this more more marketable. Great, awesome. So then I said, well, could this job be remote? And the CFO talked to the owner, and they came back and said, yeah, you know what? Like, as long as this person could come out to Ottawa maybe once a quarter, maybe twice a year, depending, we would pay for it, put them up in a hotel for a couple nights, no problem. So we did a campaign, and in the end, we had just over 100 people apply. Okay. 3 people were from the greater Ottawa area, and they were all B players or less. So had we positioned this job as a hybrid job, we only would have had 3 applications. Because we were able to market it for Ontario and Quebec, we had, I think, 96 applications, found one of the best A players I've ever found, right? Because that person was able to work remotely. So that just shows when you can be flexible and you can build that into the job, you're going to have a bigger net. It doesn't mean you have to always go that way, but it's better to have a big net. Number 4, you undersell your offering, okay? I call this the Tinder effect. So nowadays, it doesn't matter if you're, in your early 20s or in your 60s. If you are looking to find a partner, chances are you're going to use a dating app, okay? I'm using Tinder as an example, probably the most famous one out there. So you would not have a picture of yourself in a tracksuit sitting on a couch with a bag of Cheetos, like slouched over. No, you're going to show yourself at a wedding with some nice photos with, your friends and family, maybe going for a hike. You're going to write the best job or, like the best outline on yourself possible. So, I like to go for hikes. I'm sensitive. I cook food, even though you maybe only cooked 1 meal in the last year. You're going to sell yourself in the best light possible. That's how you need to approach marketing your job, right? You need to market your job like you're dating online. Okay. And it sounds like a joke. Oh, well, Tinder. No, it's true. You got to put your best foot forward. You got to write everything in a way that it's approachable. Someone can scan through the job posting. Again, you're building in all the other things like compensation, flexibility. You need to market the job like you're dating on Tinder, right? You want people to swipe right, not swipe left. And last but not least, and this is the biggest one. Well, they're all pretty big, but this is one that if you take away one thing right now in this marketplace, you need to act with urgency. Okay. And I really bring this back to having a plan, because when you have a plan, you can act with urgency. When you don't have a plan, you're reacting and you don't really know where you're going. Okay. So when we onboard a client, we always lay out a timeline and we lay out expectations, and then we agree on it. It's the same thing when I'm dealing with prospects, or anyone on our team is dealing with prospects for a job. We want to be upfront and say, okay, there's an interview, there's a second interview, and then if you make it to the third interview, it's with the client and they're hoping to hire by this time, right? We need to be upfront, okay? That just allows for the process to move quicker. The main thing is that when our clients do their final interview, we strongly recommend that you have an offer ready and you make a decision within 48 hours of your final interview. Okay, what happens all the time is that people are interviewing for other jobs and they're taking jobs. So we've seen clients who have been like, we love this person, we're going to make an offer, but they take 10 days. Okay, and by the time they come back to the prospect with an offer, they've already taken another job. It happens all the time. I mean, it happens during the actual interview process. We'll be interviewing someone, and then they'll be like, someone, hey, like this person, I think they're an A, I think they're really good. And then guess what happens? Like they send a message, oh, I've already taken another job. Thanks, but no thanks. So it's always changing during the process, like where we think we have this amount of people, then someone takes another job. It's why you need to act with urgency. Once you get into those final interviews, you need to move quickly, have your contracts ready, make that offer, get them signed. And I will add to this, I had a client recently, just on the urgency side, where, I mean, there's nothing you could have done, but it was a office job. And basically they loved the job. The prospect loved the job. It was an A player. They went to quit, and their current employer said, no, you can't leave. We're going to pay you 25% more than we're paying you now. Right? Now, that is an extreme example, and no amount of urgency would have been able to overcome that. But I just wanted to show you how challenging this market is in that someone goes to quit and their employer literally threw them $20,000 extra dollars and gave them an extra week vacation. That just goes to show you how hard the market is. Okay, grading talent. Let's get into this part. So we're building up to what an A player is. I always say, if you're getting on an airplane, if you're having surgery, you're doing a home renovation, do you want someone who's great at what they do or just okay, right? If you're having heart surgery, I'm pretty sure you want a great surgeon. You don't want just an okay surgeon, right? It's the same thing in your business. Do you want someone who's okay or great? Do you want an A player or a B or a C? Okay. So grading talent, A player, B player, and C player. What's an A player? It's the top 10% of available talent for any given position. It doesn't matter if it's the CEO, a director, a manager, a secretary, the janitor. Every single position out there has A players, okay? And A players really have a combination of raw talent and work ethic, and they use both at the same time, right? They make everyone around them better because they're always pushing the bar and they're going full out, right? A B player, on the other hand, 65 to 90% of available talent, okay? So that's quite the range. So, 80 to 90%, you could argue with some proper coaching, you can move them to A player status. 65 to 80 below there, chances are, even with some great coaching, they're probably never going to be an A player. So they're either going to stay at B status or they might actually go to C player status. They might have work ethic, might have talent, but they don't always fire at the same time, right? And a C player, on the other hand, 65% below of available talent for any given position, okay? This is why I have a garbage can. Those people belong in the garbage can. Let them go work for your competitors, okay? We at HR Cover do not hire C players. We do not hire B players unless it's like the most impossible position ever. We still want to be in that 80 to 90% of available talent. Our focus is truly A player talent. That's what we're all about. Again, it's not about just filling a position. It's about finding the best talent available that will drive your return on investment. Lou Lamoriello, great general manager. Leafs should have kept him. They made a big mistake there. So you got to think like a hockey general manager, right? So what does that mean for grading talent? Open tryouts, that's like putting a job on LinkedIn or Indeed, right? You're putting it out there. Who am I going to attract? Signing free agents, that's headhunting. That's what I love to do. I love to go out there and engage with talent. Hey, would you like to do this job? Are you happy with your job? Can I get them to leave their job and come work for my client? Developing draft picks, that's really internal development, internal promotion. So again, if you hire an A player and it's an entry-level position, well, they have the attributes to move up the ranks eventually, right? If they're an A player at what they do now, they can be an A player theoretically over time. So that's internal promotion. We're not really talking about that today, but this is just my hockey analogy. And then making cuts, right? This is going back to the garbage can. You got to release the C players and you got to release the B players that don't have what it takes to move up or might slip to C player status. So grading talent, you got to commit to the A player standard. Okay, that means that all new hires from now on in your organization will be A players. An A player is the top 10% of available talent for any given position. Okay, you want to achieve about 75, 90% A player status in the long term in your organization. To put this in perspective, most organizations in Canada and the United States, 20 to 25% of the people in a company are A players, right? We want to get that to 75 to 90. So beyond the retention and development side of things, focus on only hiring A players to start making that pipeline work. You're also going to coach promising B players towards A player status, right? So those that have the potential, give them the coaching. Sometimes it's just a couple tweaks. And then, of course, you need to long-term release the underperforming B players and C players. They do not belong in your organization if you want to be truly competitive. So at HR Covered, we recruit. That's one of the things that we do. Who do we recruit for? Well, we recruit for companies that simply don't have the bandwidth. Okay, again, this is not rocket science. but it's time consuming and recruiting is a grind. When we work on a file, we have a team of people working on it and it's a process. So unless you have the bandwidth, which most business owners do not, or VPs or managers do not have that bandwidth, they like to come to a recruiting company like HR Covered. Companies who have failed in the past, okay? So they've tried to recruit, they hired someone, it didn't work out, it was a disaster, it's cost them more money in the long run, they still don't have the right people in place. Those types of situations, a recruiting company like HR Covered is perfect. Our price advantage, we do things that other recruiters don't do. So clients are really intrigued by that. We have two different options I'll get into in a second. And last but not least, companies that simply understand what an A player is, and they will only accept A players, and they come to us, often reoccurring customers, and they say, hey, go find me my A player, I need it, we need to grow. So our recruiting process from start to finish, it's 9 steps: onboarding, preparation, launch, sorting, first interview, second interview, client interview, background checks, and then negotiations and offer. That's the whole process from start to finish. So we send you a contract, we sign, and then we begin the onboarding. We take in all that information, we understand the position, we do our salary analysis, we write everything up, you sign off on it, and then boom, we launch and we go through a 3-stage interviewing process before that person is hired. So here are our options. We have a hybrid option and a flat fee option. So these both have their different advantages. Let me talk about the hybrid fee first. So we have clients, it's put down $2,000 as an upfront fee. And when the position is filled, you pay 12% based on the final salary that position is. This is a very competitive offering when the job's filled compared to the competitors. The flat fee is $8,000 with no commission, okay? The caveat with this is that we have about an 85% fill rate for doing a round of recruiting. So in the 15% of the time where we do not fill the position in a round, it's another $4,000 if you want to proceed, which most of our clients do, to fill that position. It's still extremely price competitive, and it comes with a 90-day guarantee, which means that if the person quits that has been hired, or you decide to fire them, which really we haven't seen, but it's part of our guarantee because we're going to vet them really hard, make sure you are hiring the right person, you get to go through this whole process again with absolutely no charge. So like, you have that guarantee that if someone leaves in the first 90 days, we'll do this all over again free of charge. But this chart is really where it's all at. So $80,000, let's use that as our sample in terms of cost. Okay, so you're hiring someone, $80,000 salary. Our hybrid option, you put $2,000 up front, and then you're going to be paying $9,600 on as a commission when that position is filled. So your total cost, $11,600. The flat fee, which again is $8,000 up front, which is not 100% guaranteed, it's 85% guaranteed that we'll fill that in the first round. If we fill in the first round, your cost is $8,000. If we do another round, it's $4,000. So your cost would be $12,000 to fill that position. And then as a comparison, a recruiter that's charging 20% commission, that's $16,000, 25% commission, $20,000. So you can easily see why our options are way more price competitive. So the takeaway from today is you're going to commit. It doesn't matter if you're going to use us or you're going to recruit on your own, you're going to commit to the A player standard. So what is that, right? The top 10% of available talent for any given position. I am a broken record when it comes to this because this is extremely important. It's not just about filling positions. It's about finding top talent that will drive your organization's ROI. You're going to develop a recruiting plan, right? A great recruiting plan is using HR Covered, right? That can be, hey, someone quits, we're calling HR Covered. Build that relationship so we understand your company. If you want to scale your business and you're going to hire 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions, we can work out something for that. But when you have a recruiting plan, you can move quicker and hire better. If you're recruiting on your own, you still need a recruiting plan, right? You still need to know, okay, what's our job posting? What's our marketing strategy? What are we offering? What's the market paying? offer the best compensation possible. That's the next one, right? You got to put your best offer out there. Okay, don't worry about, well, what happens if they want more? No, just put all your cards on the table. This is my best offer. This is the best vacation, best benefits, best salary. Be straight up. Be flexible in your approach. When you can build flexibility in, build it in. Flexibility is super important, and that goes flex time. If a job is entirely in office, well, how can you make it a bit more flexible? If a job's remote, how can you make it more flexible, right? You got to always think about ways to make the job more flexible. Of course, market like you're on Tinder, right? We need good job descriptions that don't feel like jail sentences. We see job descriptions all the time, and yeah, the job might be technical, but it's written in a way that's like, this sounds like punishment. Like, where's the culture? Where's the fun? You got to build that into your job posting, because first impressions matter. Of course, act with urgency. So the fact that you're watching this webinar I know that you take this seriously. Hiring is really, really hard right now, and it's not going to get any easier in the future. So you got to act with urgency. And of course, if you need help at all, we're here, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you. You might have some questions. We can talk about how we think we can help you. And so if you ever have a question, you can reach out to me or our team at HR Covered for Recruiting, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you. But again, it's all about recruiting to the process, being competitive, moving with urgency, and only accepting hiring A players. So that is the presentation. I'm going to open it up to some questions. I'm just going to end my screen, stop share. Okay. So I have one question here about speaking as a not-for-profit. How to be competitive when you don't have a budget? So this is a great question. I'm just gonna get out of my screen so I can see. One second. Let me bring this up so I can look straight on. Okay, so the question was, where did my questions go? Chat. The question's over here about a not-for-profit. So we do a lot of recruiting for not-for-profits, mainly because they are on a fixed budget, and it's challenging because you go to a recruiting company and they're going to charge 20-25%. So our flat fee has been very attractive to not-for-profits. We've done a lot of work for them in terms of, it's going to cost money to use a recruiter, obviously, but it's also going to take time from, obviously, usually it's the executive director. So they only have so much time. So what's the value of that time? Is it worth spending $8,000 or doing the $2,000 plus the 12% on the salary and using a recruiter? I think when you talk to a lot of not-for-profits that we've dealt with, they would say it was totally worth their time, because it is a full-on effort to go through the process and to do this properly. And often the executive director is doing, please put your questions in the Q&A window. How do I do that? I'm not really sure how to do that. So that's what I would say with not-for-profits, is that if you want to do it on your own, you can. But again, you got to think about moving quickly, best offer possible, building in that flexibility, or just accept the fact that, hey, it's going to cost some money, but we can't afford to make a mishire. So that's the best I have on that one. Are you able to share the presentation? Absolutely. So we're going to export this. Anyone that signed up maybe did not make it, we're going to make this available. Always happy to talk. Hopefully I can do this live at some point. I gave it live a couple weeks ago out in Canmore, and it was a lot of fun. Again, it's a bit strange talking to myself. I do talk to myself a lot, but not usually for half an hour straight. So yes, this will be made available. And how much does it cost into hiring decisions? Example, a $200,000 salary. I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but if I do, so let's say the hybrid option, you pay a $2,000 fee, and then when that position is filled, you pay 12% of the fixed salary. Again, your standard recruiter is going to charge 20%. Some go as high as 35%. So it's definitely, obviously it's going to cost money, but the more complicated the position, the more expenses we have, the longer the process. So it's something to consider, if you're talking to other recruiters, I would definitely talk to one of us first to see if we can serve that need, because we definitely can, and we do that all the time. Another question that I had from before is, why do you charge a fee? So we charge the fee for the hybrid, we charge a fee for the flat fee. Why do we do that? It's a really good question. We have found that when you put money into something, you're more committed, right? It's no different than hiring a personal trainer, right? You're going to be accountable. You're going to start going to the gym to meet your trainer because you're paying that person to do something, as opposed to when you don't put money up, you're not always as committed. And this comes back to the recruiting plan, acting with urgency. So that's why we believe that when you put money up, be it the flat fee or hybrid, it makes the client more committed to the process, because recruiting is very, very difficult. And the client needs to be, invested into the process. And we find that has a higher rate for that, or higher rate of success. Here's a question about signing bonuses. So from Patrick. So, hey, Patrick, how you doing? Good question. It's something that is starting to come up more in terms of, what options are out there in terms of signing bonuses. So it could be $1,000 for these more senior positions. It could be $10,000, $15,000. It's something that we're seeing more of. I wouldn't say it's something that we see all the time, but it is something that is becoming more of a way to attract people, especially when you're dealing with headhunting and you're dealing with people making bonuses at the end of the year. That can be a challenge where someone's like, I don't want to leave. I want to leave my job, but I need to get my bonus first before I can move. So signing bonuses can help overcome that. Also make the offer more attractive because it's money up front right away. And there are different options that we're looking at for that. So how does HR Cover define an A player? So we do that. No, it's a good question. So how do you define an A player? Well, that really comes down to understanding what the job is by doing our onboarding with the client. So what are the top 5 things that this job has to do? What type of education do you need? What type of personality do you have? So we build out all that criteria. And then when we go through our 3 stages of interviewing, we can properly screen those people and then re-rate them after the first interview. So by the time we hand over our top picks, which typically is 2 to 3 people, that's the goal, is that after our second interview, we come back to our client in the best case scenario with 2 to 3 top A player candidates to do an interview for. But again, that's based on the criteria of a position. But an A player, again, is really the combination of raw talent and work ethic, and also that personality fit. So some jobs, it comes down to personality more. So it's like, I really, I want to have an assistant, but like, yeah, they got to get the job done, but I want to also get along with them because I can be interacting with them all the time. But to answer your question in a long, winded answer, it's really understanding the needs of the client and then building that customized vetting process to make sure that we go through all the steps. Sometimes that's even doing testing to make sure that person is the right fit. Reference checks, things like that. That's kind of just the icing on the cake, just to make sure everything is good to go. How do you recruit top prospects? How do you recruit when the prospects needs to be registered in a provincial college? So I guess that's in relation to, I'm not sure if it's for like a trade or a designation. It's a good question. So obviously, if it's a job in Ontario and they need to be certified in Ontario, they would have to have that. But if they're coming from another province, maybe depending on the job, without knowing the details, it's something that can be done through a test or it's recognized in the province. What else do we have here? Clarify the costs. I just meant hiring a more expensive candidate would deliver more value. What is that worth? So it's kind of hard to read questions and do a Q&A, or to do a Q&A like this. But yeah, so if it's a $200,000 salary, again, 20% commission, you're $40,000. With us, it would be $2,000 down and then $12,000 on that. So it would be a $24,000 fee. Big difference. That's an extreme example. I would say most of our jobs are between $80,000 to $120,000. Another question from before. What was that? Oh, just the impact of getting rid of C players. What does that have on an organization? I always say that it's think about hockey. If you had 4 lines and you had someone who was underperforming, is that going to have a positive or negative effect on the team, right? If people aren't showing up to practice, if they're out of shape, if they're not trying, it's going to have a bad impact on your organization, like on your hockey team. Same thing in a business. You can't have people just going through the motions, quietly quitting. You need people that care about what they do, that are committed, and put everything into their work. Is there anything else? Do you recommend interviews by peers, people already in the job team, to check for competency and personality fit? Not 100%. I understand that. So when we do our interviews, we do a first interview, and then our second interview, which is really the main one when they make it that far, it's with 2 of us. So myself and another recruiter, and we go through a whole slew of questions. The interview is about an hour long. We follow the top grading process. And then sometimes the client might say, hey, can you give us some questions that we should ask? Or like, what do you think this person is? Like, are they a good fit based on what you know about us? So everything is customizable. I'm not sure I answered that properly. But sometimes clients might have 2 people on an interview. They might have 1. But when we do our interviews, for 99% of the time, it's our team. We go through our process, and then we provide our top picks to our people. So I'm not sure if I answered all the questions. Hopefully I did. And if you have any questions, you can reach me, Brett R at hrcovered.com. Again, this webinar will be made live, will be made available for anyone who wants to watch it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk to you. Same with anyone on our team. Again, recruiting is very, very difficult right now. If you want to recruit on your own, you can totally do that. Just follow the points that I laid out in this presentation in terms of having a plan, moving quickly, best offer possible. And if you want to use a recruiting company, I really do feel that HR Covered, we do things, everything that we do, we try to do it in a different way to make ourselves different, to try new things. And our 2 different recruiting options, the clients that we've had, you can go on our website, look at our testimonials. We have a great track record, and we love hiring A players. There might be one more question here. You're talking only about your interviews prior to releasing them to clients. Again, I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of hard to read the questions and understand, but yeah, when we do our interviews, and then the client does their final interviews, we're not on the final interviews. And last question here. Yes. Yes, we recruit across Canada. So we are a full service HR company. We offer HR services across Canada from coast to coast to coast. We do work in British Columbia, out east, and we haven't done really much in the territories, but Vancouver, as an example, we've done a few jobs lately that are both hybrid and in office for some manufacturing tech companies, also in some financial services. So we are all over the place. It doesn't really matter where the client is or if it's remote or in office, because we're working virtually, and it actually makes it more effective and efficient, because we can do these things on Zoom and Meet and whatnot. So we can really recruit for anyone, anywhere. We've recruited for Canadian companies in Mexico, as an example, that wanted tech workers that would work 4 days a week, and they wanted to hire in Canada and in Mexico. So we can customize it. And that's the other thing I'll say just before I wrap this up. We have our process, but at the end of the day, you're the client. If you want to customize the process in any way, we can do that. And we have done that. I'm just finishing up a client right now, and they basically said to me, we want to see the top 10 resumes from everyone who has applied during this, the 2-week window where we're going out there and finding people. So I sent them my top 10 applicants. They said, hey, these all look good. Can you interview all of them? I did. And then I came back and recommended my top 5. And then they're now interviewing those top 5 picks now. So typically it's 2 to 3 picks, but that was what the client wanted. So we adjusted it, and that's how we went about that. So anyways, hopefully I was able to answer your questions. It's just very strange doing a Q&A. I can't hear anyone and I'm trying to read. So maybe next time we'll have someone read me the questions so I can answer them better. Reading and talking is a bit distracting when you're standing in your office alone. But thanks for coming. I hope you learned some stuff on recruiting. Again, hiring, it's very, very difficult right now. Commit to the A-player standard. If you have any questions, please reach out and we'd be more than happy to talk to you to understand your needs and how we can best serve you. So that is all. And I think I'm going to log off now. So thanks again. Over and out.